listening to Overwatch League Daily, your daily source for Overwatch League news, scores, and more. Here's your host, KickedTripod.
Good morning, Overwatch League fans. This is your Overwatch League daily episode for June 14th, 2018. The final week of the regular season is upon us, with teams jockeying for their spot in the stage playoffs and also the season playoffs. The LA Valiant are confirmed for the stage playoffs. The LA Gladiators are confirmed, but there are a few outside situations where a combination of NYXL, Dallas Fuel, Philadelphia Fusion, and the Houston Outlaws, and I guess the San Francisco Shock even, can fall in or out of these stage playoffs. So make sure to keep a tight eye on those, because that is changing, and it's changing quickly. For the season playoffs, the NYXL and LA Valiant have secured their spot in the playoffs as the first seeds for the division, and for each division. And then there's quite a bit of free space in the remaining 4 spots. The LA Gladiators clinched their playoff spot just yesterday against Shanghai, and the Boston Uprising, London Spitfire, and Philadelphia Fusion are the most likely to make it into the season playoffs. But there still is an outside chance that the Fusion, if the Fusion, lose both of their matches this week, they leave the door open for both Houston or Seoul to sneak in. In other news, the Shanghai Dragons have called in some last-minute help from X6 Gaming, the Overwatch Contenders Korea champion for 2018 so far. Members of X6 Gaming are in LA assisting the Shanghai coaching staff right now. We'll see if that can help them get their win on their last match of the season. Finally, let's get to your 2-minute rundown, brought to you by patreon.com/OWL Daily Show. And of course, all of our patrons there, thank you for supporting the show. The Shanghai Dragons have just 2 opportunities to get a win in the Overwatch League regular season, while the LA Gladiators are looking to clinch their position in the Overwatch League season playoffs. Despite the help from X6 Gaming, the Shanghai Dragons get swept 4 maps to 0, and will have to look to their match against the San Francisco Shock on Saturday to hopefully finish the season at 1-39. The LA Valiant are guaranteed the stage playoffs and the 2nd seed in the Overwatch League season playoffs. Meanwhile, the Shock are on the outside looking in for both, but are looking to make a statement that they are a force to be reckoned with in the Overwatch League. Despite a strong showing from the crew in San Francisco, KSF, Custa, and the Valiant would prove to be too much for the Shock, as LA would prevail 3 maps to 1. With their victory, the LA Valiant have clinched their $200,000 season bonus. And then for the final match of the evening, we had the Dallas Fuel, who before this match were sitting narrowly in 4th place for the stage, thanks to a head-to-head advantage over the Philadelphia Fusion, going up against the Seoul Dynasty, who sat at a disappointing 2-6. Despite the favorable matchup, it would be Seoul taking Dallas, as the Fuel would fall 3 maps to 1. Coming up tomorrow, we have the Houston Outlaws taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. This is a must-win for both teams, as these are just on the fringe for both the stage and season playoffs. After that, we have the Florida Mayhem taking on the London Spitfire. And to round out the evening, we've got NYXL taking on the Boston Uprising. Games start at 4 p.m. Pacific time at overwatchleague.com and twitch.tv/Overwatch League. But today, I sat down with Volamel to discuss yesterday's matches. Joe, it's been a while, man. We did what, Open Division was the last time we've done something like this?
Yeah.
So
it's been a minute, and it's always fun to come back, and it's always a blast just chit-chatting and having a little chit-chat and having a little talk with you and talking about the game. So it's always fun to be back.
Better late than never. I see you're wearing your Gen G jersey.
Yeah, I felt like,
I've got mine. I just wish we would have coordinated it. And then,
I should have.
Yeah, you got to let me know next time. Okay, we need to talk about yesterday's matches. Better late than never here. Coming in at the end of stage 4, right? Week 4, stage 5, or week 5, stage 4 underway, and lots of stuff going on. But one of the really interesting ones, I would say, with 2 matches left and no playoffs in sight, you're probably not looking to make any huge roster changes or staff changes, but Shanghai did it anyway. They brought in some members of X6 Gaming to assist their coaching staff. I don't have the specifics on if it's players, coaches, a combination of both, but what are your thoughts on this, and especially doing it so late? They're 0-39 now. They've got one game left.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange move, but on paper, kind of disregarding some of the context, I think that it's a very important move to kind of add a little bit of history to who X6 Gaming are. For those of you who don't know, this is a team that kind of came up to the ranks back in like Apex Season 3. They were like the first kind of team that really broke through, second to like Meta Athena in Season 2, that came up through what would have been contenders back in the day. It was the Korean amateur scene that comes up and plays during Apex, and they did very well, most notably taking an upset victory. I don't remember if it was a reverse sweep or not. Something in my brain is telling me that it is, but I'm not sure. Against Team Envious, with their crazy swap from their main tank playing Junkrat when Junkrat was bad and didn't have 2 mines and wasn't completely busted, and it was on Dorado, and it was a crazy upset, and you know, it was the talk of the town at the time, and they kind of made their name there, and now they have actually won Contenders Korea and looked very dominant throughout, probably second to Element Mystic, but you know, seeing how Element Mystic lost very, very early on to an upset to O2 Ardent, it was kind of clear, to me at least, that X6 was probably, if they could get over a few hurdles, run away, Kongdu, they should be able to take this, and they did very, very convincingly. So bringing on a coaching staff that is kind of tenured like that and has a lot of success is very important in the long run. So I would love that. I would love to see Shanghai actually stay and kind of formally adopt these kind of members again. Like, we don't know if it's players, if it's coaches. Like, we don't actually know who's coming over yet. There's not a lot of details involved, but tying those two organizations together is definitely a boon for Shanghai, and maybe even better for X6, because you know, not to, you know, go too in depth with how I feel about X6. They have bred a lot of amazing players. Architect comes from X6. Godsby, very, very solid hit scan player that's kind of slept on in Korea. Not slept on, but just, he's a talent out there that I would, if he's of age, which I'm not, you know, too keen on his age at the moment. I think he could easily be an Overwatch League caliber player. Cho Hyobin, Bebe, they, like, this team for a long time has been someone who I kind of want Overwatch League teams to siphon from and kind of pick players from, and you're starting to see that more and more now. So I think that Shanghai and X6 tying together and kind of in a partnership, almost, it feels like, as it is right now, I think could be very, very good for Season 2. Obviously, right now they've got one more match, and I don't know how much a coaching staff is really going to affect one match, especially in this short of notice.
Right. And, but then you have Arrow and Krusty. But
that's fair. That's
besides, fair. Yeah, it's weird, right? It shouldn't. It has, but it shouldn't, especially when you're a team that, you know, has already not won and, you know, is used to winning single-digit map counts through 40 game, or, you know, 10 games per stage. It's not that's a big bust to turn around. That's what we'll say. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
On the flip side, though, I want to talk about the Valiant in the next match. Sure. The Valiant are kind of in this NYXL situation, right? Where they're clinching or on the verge of clinching. They're not too worried. You know, they've got their $200,000 season bonus. They've clinched now both season and stage playoffs, but they're also close to a 10-0 stage, something only done by Boston in stage 3. The question's been, are they going to take the foot off the gas a little bit, or are they going to go all in, get that perfect stage? Not because it necessarily means that they're playing better, or I guess, you know, just for the sake of getting that, I guess to say. What look did we see from the Valiant yesterday? Was this a team with their foot on the gas, or was it a team kind of letting off?
I think there's a lot of evidence to support them kind of shifting down gears a little bit, giving their star DPS players soon, and in giving the starting roster a rest a little bit. You know, we brought in KSF, they brought in Bunny, the Tracer God from Apex Season 2. He's been a Tracer one trick basically his entire career and looked very, very dominant on it. But there was always a question, you know, how far does Bunny go in the future? You know, if he can only play Tracer, you know, maybe his career is a little bit short-lived. And they come out, and you know what? I have to say I've been pretty impressed so far. KSF, I still want to see more from him. I'm still, you know, on the fence, leaning towards a very positive look. But Bunny,
we're gonna do a whole episode, by the way, you and me, just on KSF in the postseason. So don't you worry. We'll come back to that. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're good, because I think that KSF has a lot of potential, and it's difficult to get him to see more playtime. But we could see him in the World Cup for USA, which I would love to see. I think that kind of is a stage for showing off some new talent that we don't normally see. So I think that's a potential. But again, Bunny has looked very, very comfortable on the Widowmaker. So I think that, you know, that's a good look for him, not only within the Valiant, but outside of the Valiant, if they do want to kind of offload him, or if maybe he even gets a better offer that they want to kind of allow him to pursue. Because I do have to say that Noah Winston and the kind of Immortal staff was very comfortable with allowing players to do that in the past, looking at like League of Legends and how one of their players actually was recruited and kind of had an offer from SKT, and they were like, well, we wanted to sign you, but this is a big offer for you, so you know, go ahead and chase it. Like that whole organization is really well put together. They have quite a good bunch of people on staff. So I think that overall they've done a great job with Bunny, and I would love to see him stay within this roster. But I could see him; he's very talented, and he's showing his flexibility now. So I think, you know, he's looking a lot more enticing to other teams at the moment. So can they fit him in the roster? I think they can. It'll be a little bit difficult, especially in the offseason, to kind of restructure again around another 3 DPS lineup, but he's making a name for himself. He's making a case to be kept, or even just be offloaded on another team and be an incredible DPS player.
Well, the Valiant are a team that if you go back and look at them in stage 1, right, you might not even know. You change the color of their jersey and you might not even know it's the Valiant. You know, so much has changed on that roster, especially on the player side. And they're one of the few teams where all this turmoil has actually kind of been good, and they've just kind of gotten better, where obviously right now they're 9-0 in the stage. What's made them so effective even through all this kind of change that we've seen? I feel like at the center of that has to be Soon, but what else? What makes them so effective here?
I think that they identified a lot of their problems early on, or maybe it wasn't even necessarily a problem. I think that they were just looking to really kind of clear the air. If we look back at some of their kind of content that they produced, their kind of reality show in a way, they needed, and it's not the in and out. You know, I think we harp on that a lot. It's funny, but one of the big things that I think has been a theme throughout the entire Overwatch League so far for this first season is that it's very difficult to remove players, but it's very easy to remove coaches. And that when you do kind of put a lot of weight on the coach and then remove him, the players feel like, oh, there's a fresh start. You know, we can kind of wipe the slate clean and clear consciences and really start to rebuild now. And I think Coach Moon and this amazing support staff that the team has put together with Damon and Gunba, and I believe Schwartzbruder from way back in CLG and League of Legends. I think he has, you know, they have a great group of guys there. They're very talented. And I think Coach Moon has done a great job really structuring this team to be your, I don't have a traditional sports analogy, but the team that kind of is just better than the sum of their parts. You know, you look at this team and they're all very, very good players, but they're just incredibly consistent, where they've never a lot of these players come from not the most amazing teams. Like, yes, Soon and some of the other French players that were previous on this team were previous, amazing level caliber players, and they still are incredibly good, but they kind of started to slump, looking at contenders, and, they had their roster troubles. You look at, Mighty AOD, where a lot of these other players come from. Fate, Coach Moon himself, I believe, actually came from Mighty AOD as well. Kariv, they had their issues. They were still kind of a dark horse team, but their potential starting to come out now, and it's really starting to shine through. I do think the criticism that Valiant is not an explosive team is very fair and pretty apt, but I don't think you need to, and I think that it's a fine style that Valiant's putting on, that they are very just cut and dry. This is how we play. It's very standard. There's not too much deviation away from things. We have our game plan. It could, include some curveballs, but it's very just standard macro play. If I'm to bring up a StarCraft 2 analogy, it's very MVP-esque and just nice to watch. It's kind of just a refreshing take on just fundamentals. Yeah. Exactly. It's all just macro play.
It's like when you brought up playing a sport your entire life, and you're taught to be a shortstop, how to sit, how to they got that fundamentals down. It's not the most exciting. I say it all the time on the show. People are probably sick of it. I'm from Minnesota. We got the Minnesota Twins, right? Yeah. They're the most boring team in the world, and I love them to death because of it. Because they're, Ozzie Guillen called them the piranhas. They're just like, you give them an inch, they take a mile kind of thing, but they're not exciting. They don't hit these huge home runs. They're not, you're not.
They'll beat you to death with spoons if they have to.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to steal and single and, make you throw 8 pitches in a batter, and they're just going to wear you down eventually. They're just kind of they're that conditioned team.
Completely agree.
Another team I wanted to talk about is Dallas Fuel, and they just played the Seoul Dynasty. And man, this is just kind of weird, right? If you go back to stage 1, I mean, these teams' records are basically flipped at this point. Dallas had a pretty big advantage going into this match. Not only this match, but the first half. I think it was like a 25% win rate and a 0% win rate on the maps for the Seoul Dynasty that they took both of. Don't quote me on that, but they were bad, okay? Because Bren made sure we knew it on the thing. It was not a very good representative map pool for them, but they blew it ultimately. And these are really important, Seoul's fighting for the season playoffs. Dallas obviously isn't going to make that, but they're fighting for the stage playoffs right now. What happened in the first half that let Seoul just kind of run away with this one?
I think Dallas started off this first half of the stage with a very surprising and explosive entrance into the meta. They were very bold on how they wanted to play Brigitte, and they've really been leaning on that coming into week 5. And I think teams are really starting to get keen on how Dallas is playing. It's very centered around trying to make their backline a ton of space with Mickey and the tank line being a little bit over aggressive at times, and they can do that because they have players like Mickey. They have an amazing main tank in OGE that is very aggressive, and it is willing to kind of make these kind of aggressive calls with Earth Shatters and Primal Rages, and he actually gets quite a bit of value from it, even if at times you can see him with some Earth Shatters. But a lot of the times him and Mickey have a great synergy built up with Reinhardt and Brigitte. I think that's quite a lot of pressure to be putting on to the enemy team. So it creates a lot of space. And I think teams are starting to really break that down and figure out their own ways to kind of deal with it. And unfortunately, with the late resurgence that Dallas has had, it's, now they're going back to the whiteboard, with their backs against the wall and say, okay, how can we improve this, but B, also increase our breadth of strategy and what else we can do, and then improve on that as well. So it's it's sad that Arrow had to come in so late. I would have loved to see what this team looks like if they started off with Arrow, because I think they would have been not only an amazing middle of the pack team, but they actually could have, I think in certain cases, and if certain things aren't going on. I think they probably could have actually made one or two of the stage playoffs throughout the season, and I think they're going to be a great team come season 2. But it seems like they've just had too late of a resurgence, and it's difficult for them to kind of come back because they're so kind of stylistic right now. I think that a team like Seoul that's really kind of starting to come into their own at the moment, and again, I don't think anybody was really kind of expecting Seoul to come out like they did yesterday and really perform, but man, they did. And I really think that they've started to find their groove, and we say that a lot about Seoul. I've said that numerous times.
Yeah.
And they continuously just shift gears into they go from 1 to 5 and they're looking great, and then they go down to Park and you're like, okay, what happened?
When
like,
I saw them
why did we just stop?
The first few weeks of stage 1, I'm like, there's no way anybody challenges Seoul. I'm looking at them now and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't tweet that.
Yeah,
glad I didn't tweet
that age well.
Yeah, not at all. Now I said it to everybody. So way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
What about Seagull? So Seagull is he's gone through a lot, right? He's like the flip side of the XQC equation, right? Where they're both streamers. They've got big followings. You got a little bit of a White Knight, Dark Horse type thing going on. The bad boy versus like Mr. Mr. Rogers or whatever it is. Yeah. He's without a doubt got one of the largest individual followings in competitive Overwatch. But there were a lot of people, I don't know about a lot, but there were people who were concerned that Seagull, while a great streamer, wasn't maybe quite Overwatch League caliber level DPS. We saw, I gotta say, we saw a really respectable entire season for sure, but especially stage 4 from Seagull. And we talk about Western DPS a lot of players who, sure, yeah, you've got the Fletas, you've got Sabiobi and Pine, but on the Western side, where does Seagull kind of sit? Where does he plant himself? Where does he lay his nest, if you will, at the end of season 1 for Western DPS for you?
I think he's definitely in the consideration for anywhere from 1 to 5. I think anywhere outside of that, and we're kind of downplaying him quite a bit. I think if we look at, to kind of touch on the first part of the question, right? So like, why might people be a little bit gun shy with Seagull? I think if you look at his competitive history, it's been very difficult to kind of draw any big conclusions from any past results because none of his teams have really been that great.
Kelvin and the Chipmunks were great. Okay, I suppose they were the best open division team we'd ever seen. Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. It's just been, I think, difficult for some of the fans to really find anything other than some anecdotal evidence of, people say he's very good and very smart, and his hero pool is very big, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. He can play a lot of really wonky stuff. His maze incredible. He can play Pharah, and Hanzo is quite a staple pick for him. But he can also play Genji and a lot of the other just projectile heroes. And then coming into this Dallas Fuel team and Team NBS at the time, they brought him on presumably from the community perspective to play projectile, and then things happened in Dallas, and now he was moved to Diva. So he had to learn a completely new role, which he did fairly quickly. I might add, within the season hasn't been very long, and I think he learned it in 2 to 3 stages.
Yeah,
and came out and showed quite a high aptitude for it. So I think that as kind of cliche and cheesy as it is, he has been kind of selfless for this team and actually put everything on the line, because again, he could just retire and just go stream and make quite a bit of money and retire early and sit on a beach in Aspen somewhere, in Florida. I don't think Aspen has beaches. Yeah, beaches in Aspen, right? He could be in a resort.
Samsonite. No, sure. Not close. All right. Yeah.
But anyways, he is very, very strong. He's been a great staple for this team. He's a role player. He's a carry when he needs to be. It's been fabulous to watch him really start to find his own within a team that can kind of facilitate him, and he can actually give back to this team as well. So I think from marketing's perspective, you'd never let him go. From a playing, from a level perspective, looking at how good he is, I don't think you let him go. I think you probably re-up, and you might even give him a little bit of a bonus because he stuck through a lot of garbage to this team.
It's true.
And they're starting to actually see some benefits from, starting not necessarily to weed out the bad seeds, if you will, but this team is looking promising. I do have to say, season 2 looks great for Dallas, especially with the way they started season 1.
They're a team that looks like they have a new level of focus. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're all of a sudden, turn the corner and, like I think the fuel that we're seeing now is kind of maybe not quite this last one, but the one that's kind of the last couple of weeks where it hasn't quite been like these really dominant type thing. I think like that was kind of the fuel that is probably where they sit over a long period of time kind of thing. Like the first few weeks. Yep. I was excited too. I almost ordered my fuel shirt. I get it. I almost ordered my Arrow shirt. Then I found out they didn't have one and I had to do a custom order. And that was, a giant pain in the butt. Dallas, help me out here. Jeez.
Yeah, coaches
but yeah, give me the coach jerseys. Let's go. Give me my Harder jersey. Yeah.
There you go.
Analysts too. I want analysts too. But it felt like they kind of surprised everyone, and everyone has wanted to love the fuel. Let's be for real here. Like they're Envious has for the longest time been like the most marketable team in at least Western Overwatch. People loved the interactions. They're like a little boy band basically when it came down to that. Yeah. So, but I think what we're seeing now is a little bit more realistic on kind of where they're playing. I think they're going to improve, of course. But I'm really impressed with Seagull and kind of where he's ended up, especially because there were a lot of people who, I think love him as a person and a player, but weren't quite on this. I believe in Seagull to be an Overwatch League caliber player. Yeah. So I'm glad that he's kind of showed them wrong there. I'm glad that, Dallas is fighting for playoffs rather than fighting to not be below the mayhem, I guess, is kind of the flip side of it. And man, it's going to be a wild ride these next couple weeks. We've got playoffs coming. Well, I guess not the next couple weeks. We got 4 days left of the regular season. Then we've got playoffs. Of course, we're going to be here for that. And then are you going to be at grand finals?
I don't know.
You don't know? I can't. My brother's getting married that weekend. I'm the best man. There's nothing I can do about it. Like, can we get married in New York?
Yeah, really. Like, the Barclay Cider's got a great event going on.
Yeah, right. We could probably get a box.
I'm sure we could pull some strings.
Yeah, right. I mean, how great would that be? An Overwatch League wedding.
I don't know what's going on, but I guess this is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Joe, Joe, thanks so much. Do you have anything cool coming up that you want people to look out for, or just stay tuned, follow Volamel on Twitter and subscribe to this. Subscribe to his YouTube. Volamel's Viewpoints is a staple. It's a staple. I'll help you on the naming if you want. But
that would be great. That would be great.
But besides that, I love Volamel's Viewpoints. It's one of my favorites. You got Yiska's Viewpoints. I think is what it's. No, it's
Thinking It Over.
Thinking It Over.
He actually was a little bit more original, and I was just like, all right, alliteration.
I did the logo for Thinking It Over.
V. You did? Yeah, so. It looks quite good. Hats off to you. I think that maybe I'll have to commission my, my good friend KickedTripod to make me one, because my stuff looks quite janky.
I like your V in the Viewpoints. We're going way off topic. Joe, thanks again. I really appreciate it. We need to just do a show sometime where we just sit down and go wherever we want.